I want you to imagine, just for a second, living on the absolute precipice of hell.
Yeah, that's a pretty intense way to start.
Right. But I'm not using that as some sort of dramatic flourish or like a poetic metaphor for a bad neighborhood. I mean a literal, physical, geographic location.
Oh, absolutely. It's a completely alien concept to us.
Yeah, imagine if your entire society, the streets you walk on, the air you breathe, the home where you raise your kids was built right on the very edge of a cosmic catastrophe.
It's terrifying to even picture.
It is. You wake up every single morning, you look out the window, and instead of a sunrise, you just see oblivion staring back at you. Like reality itself is tearing open at the end of your block.
And dealing with that requires a completely different mindset.
Exactly. What if the basic requirement for your daily survival meant sacrificing your very soul?
It completely shatters our normal framework for how a civilization operates, right?
Yeah.
We usually think of survival in terms of finding water, building shelter, establishing agriculture,
The basics, yeah.
right? The basics. But when the environment itself is an active, malevolent force trying to unmake your reality, those basic needs become totally secondary to a much darker set of priorities.
Because you're just constantly under siege.
Exactly. You have to reorganize your entire existence around this profound generational paranoia.
And that feeling of unending dread is exactly what we're wading into today on this deep dive. We're looking at a faction known as the Asuryani of the Black and Bone.
Specifically from a place called Craftworld Ulthwé.
Yeah, Craftworld Ulthwé. They often referred to as the Sentinels of the Eye in the source material. And what I found so compelling about this, about the documents we're analyzing, wasn't just the sheer scale of their struggle. It was the terrifying logic they used to endure it.
Well, that logic is the true core of what we're unpacking today. This is a masterclass in extreme pragmatism.
100%.
We're going to explore how a civilization completely adapts its military structure, its culture, and even its fundamental morality when it's placed in a literal cosmic prison.
It's just wild to read about.
It is. It's this desperate, highly calculated struggle to manipulate fate itself against forces that completely defy basic physics.
So if you were someone who finds yourself trying to understand, like, the absolute limits of utilitarian ethics, or you're curious about how extreme environments forge completely alien mindsets, or honestly, if you just love exploring a really gritty, uncompromising survival narrative, we have some major aha moments lined up for you.
Oh, definitely. We're going to dig into the true nature of fate and the staggering price of vigilance.
And the kinds of sacrifices that most of us can barely even comprehend making.
So, to really grasp who these people are, we kind of have to start with the geography of their damnation. Because for Craftworld Ulthwé, a location is destiny.
Yeah, their real estate situation is basically the worst in the galaxy.
Literally. Their entire existence is defined by exactly where they are parked.
Okay, so let's establish that location because it really is an absolute nightmare. The historical records we have pinpoint a very specific cataclysmic origin for their current predicament.
Right. The birth of Slaanesh.
Exactly. It involves the birth of this entity called Slaanesh. And during this massive event, the craft world, which, for context, is essentially a continent-sized spaceship, was caught in the gravitational pull of something called the Eye of Terror.
And that pull never really stopped.
No, it didn't. Now it just perpetually orbits the very edge of this thing, dangerously close to being completely absorbed.
We really need to define what the Eye of Terror actually is, though. Because saying gravitational pull almost makes it sound too normal, like a mundane black hole or something.
Right, like it's just heavy.
Yeah, but the birth of this entity, Slaanesh, didn't just cause a political upheaval or a supernova. The sources say it triggered a psychic screen so powerful that it actually tore a hole in the fabric of the physical universe.
Wait, okay, a psychic scream. How does a screen tear a hole in actual space?
Well, because in this universe, there is a parallel dimension called the warp.
Correct.
And the best way to understand the warp is to imagine an ocean composed entirely of raw emotion, thought, and psychic energy.
So it's not made of matter.
Exactly. It's a realm of pure chaos, where the laws of physics simply do not apply. And normally, the physical universe and the warp are separated by a barrier.
Like a wall between two rooms.
Right. But the sheer magnitude of Slaanesh's birth ruptured that barrier completely. So the Eye of Terror is that rupture. It's a massive bleeding tear in reality where the nightmare physics of the warp violently flood into real space.
Oh, wow.
And Craftworld Ulthwé is caught right in the tide of that bleeding wound.
Okay, let me stop you right there because this is where my brain immediately throws up a red flag regarding their logic.
Oh, how so?
Well, if a massive, terrifying sinkhole opens up under your house, you move. You know, you pack up the car, you grab your family, and you drive away.
Sure, that makes sense on Earth.
Right. You don't just set up lawn chairs on the edge of the collapsing Earth and decide to live there permanently. And these craft worlds have engines, right? They are ships.
They are, yes.
So why not just turn the steering wheel and fly in the exact opposite direction of the giant tear in reality?
I mean, I would normally agree with the sinkhole analogy, but it implies a static environment. A sinkhole just sits there while you walk away.
Okay, true.
The Eye of Terror is active. When the rupture happened, the psychic undertow was so unimaginably strong that it fundamentally trapped them. They aren't choosing to stay out of stubbornness or pride.
Oh, so they literally can't leave.
Exactly. They are physically anchored in a cosmic riptide.
Ah, okay. So it's less like a sinkhole and more like an event horizon of a black hole.
That's a perfect way to look at it. But instead of a singularity of gravity crushing you into a speck of dust, it's a vortex of pure, corrupting chaos.
That is horrifying.
They are caught in a tidal lock with hell itself. They're essentially orbiting the drain of the universe, burning incredible amounts of energy just to maintain their position and not get sucked in.
That reframes everything for me. Like, they aren't brave pioneers setting up a watchtower on the frontier. They are inmates in a cosmic prison.
Very much so.
And the toll that takes on them has to be beyond comprehension. Like, we have to completely discard any mental image of a pristine, beautiful, floating sci-fi city in space.
Oh, absolutely. This place is a bulwark existing in a permanent, unending state of emergency.
And the physical manifestation of that emergency is visible everywhere you look on the craft world, right?
Yeah.
We have accounts in the text detailing that significant portions of the ship itself actually lie in ruins.
Yes, that's a crucial detail.
This isn't just a vessel that needs some deferred maintenance. Entire sprawling sectors have been decimated by centuries of demonic incursions.
Just think about the infrastructure required just to keep the habitable zones sealed off from those ruined zones. It must be staggering.
I really want to pause and force us to picture that reality for a second. You're walking down the street of your city, maybe taking your kids to school.
Right.
And you know that just a few blocks over, there's a massive, quarantine, bombed-out zone where literal demons...
And this isn't a one-time historical event that you commemorate once a year.
Exactly. This is a Tuesday.
You'd have massive bulkhead doors, energy shields constantly flickering under immense pressure, and a population that never truly sleeps.
Because you can't, right? Every sudden drop in temperature, every weird hum in the deck plating could signal a breach in the containment fields.
Yeah, you are raising children in a war zone that is literally floating on the edge of the abyss.
How do you even develop a functional society like that? I mean, the amount of resources dedicated solely to patching the walls, let alone growing food or creating art, must consume almost everything they have.
It creates a profound generational trauma that alters their very nature. You have generations of citizens who have never known a single day of true peace, silence, or safety.
The paranoia is just woven into their cultural DNA at that point.
Exactly. But this geographical trapping, this proximity to the Eye of Terror, it doesn't just dictate their architecture or their military readiness.
It changes them physically too, right?
Yes, it fundamentally alters their biology.
Right, because if you live next to a radioactive wasteland, your body mutates, your cells break down, you get sick, but the radiation pouring out of the Eye of Terror isn't electromagnetic.
Wow, it's psychic.
It's psychic, and that leads to one of the most fascinating aspects of these people. It's their minds that change.
The proximity to the warp acts as a massive evolutionary catalyst for them. Because the warp is a realm of psychic energy, living on its doorstep naturally amplifies the psychic potential of the population.
Which makes sense in a twisted way.
Yeah. Craftworld Ulthwé produces a remarkably large, intensely potent population of psychers.
And a psyker is basically someone with psychic abilities, right?
Correct. Specifically individuals who can actively channel and manipulate this warp energy with their minds. They have far more of these individuals known as farseers and warlocks than any other craft world in existence.
So let's unpack these farseers, because when you say psyker or someone who sees the future, I immediately picture like a mystic in a tent doing card tricks or someone having vague, cryptic dreams.
That's a common trope, yeah.
But that is not at all what these people are doing based on the sources. Their vision penetrates further into time and with far greater precision than anyone else in their entire species.
Well, they aren't passive observers of a predetermined timeline. They don't just have a vision of an earthquake and then, write a warning on a wall.
Right.
They engage with what the text calls the skeins of fate. You have to imagine time not as a single flowing river, but as an infinitely complex, tangled web of probabilities.
So every choice, every random event creates a new branching thread.
Precisely. And they're looking at a million different versions of tomorrow simultaneously.
That sounds exhausting.
And more importantly, they're looking for the pressure points. They study these threads of probability to see where a tiny manipulation in the present can cause a massive cascading effect in the future.
So they aren't just watching, they actively pluck the threads to intentionally orchestrate specific outcomes.
Exactly. And the records highlight a prime example of this with a figure named Craftworld Ulthwé.
Right, I saw his name pop up constantly in the deep dive materials.
He is described as the mightiest far-seer of his age, and arguably the most gifted psyker born after their civilization's great fall.
He's basically a towering mythical figure to them, someone who saved thousands of his people's lives and literally shaped the fate of the entire galaxy through these manipulations.
Eldrad represents the absolute pinnacle of this capability. He, along with the governing body known as the Seer Council, directs all these interventions.
And the scale of their operation is difficult to overstate, right? They aren't just manipulating local politics on their ship.
Not at all. They are steering the destiny of entire alien empires to ensure the survival of their own people.
It makes me think of a grandmaster chess player.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, because a grandmaster can look at a board and see 50 moves ahead, knowing every possible permutation of how the game can end.
Right, they see the whole tree of moves.
But here is the catch with the Farseers. It's like the chessboard is entirely made of live explosives.
Huh.
One wrong move, one slight miscalculation of a pawn's trajectory, and the entire board detonates. They are playing multidimensional chess with the survival of their species on a board that actively hates them.
I think that analogy captures the volatility perfectly. Because the warp itself, which fuels their foresight, is inherently deceptive.
Oh, because it's chaotic.
Yes. The visions aren't always clear. They are clouded by the malevolent entities within the warp who actively want to trick them.
Wait, really? So they get false visions?
Constantly.
Yeah.
A farseer has to decipher truth from a psychic hallucination specifically designed by a demon to doom them.
Which brings up a horrifying psychological reality. If the default future holds the potential extinction of your race, you aren't looking at visions of sunshine and progress.
Not even close.
When you close your eyes and look into the skeins of fate, you are watching 1,000 different ways your family, your friends, and your entire world die horribly.
It's just endless trauma.
And you have to sift through all that trauma over and over just to find the one narrow, agonizing path where a fraction of them survive.
It forces a society to live entirely in the future tense. The present moment almost ceases to exist for them.
Because their minds are constantly agonizing over a catastrophe that might happen, like, 300 years from now.
Yes, and this isn't just an academic exercise in anxiety either. These visions demand highly consequential actions. They don't just watch the threads, they cut them.
Which opens up what I consider the most shocking, genuinely unsettling part of this entire analysis.
The Seer Council's interventions.
Yeah, because cutting those threads is not some clean philosophical undertaking. It requires blood. When we look at the actions of the Seer Council, we have to talk about the incredibly cold calculus of survival they employ.
The operational history of this governing Seer Council is filled with instances where they overtly and secretly interfere with other races.
Right.
They essentially treat the rest of the galaxy as completely expendable game pieces.
And the most stark, horrifying example of this in the records is an event where the Seer Council intentionally ignited a massive conflict. The text refers to it as the Second War for Armageddon.
Yes, that's a pivotal case study in their methodology.
Let's look at the raw numbers here, because the math they used is staggering. They basically plunged an entire human-populated planet, Armageddon, into an apocalyptic war.
An absolute bloodbath.
And they did it simply to save a relatively small number of their own people. The data in the source material suggests they triggered this planetary conflict just to spare a mere 10,000 Asuriani lives.
And, staying entirely impartial here and just looking at the facts of the source material, it perfectly illustrates their overarching ethical framework or lack thereof when dealing with outsiders.
Right, it's absolute moral relativism.
Exactly. To the Seer Council, it's just a survival mechanism. The records state quite clearly that they would gladly see 100,000 human beings perish, or even millions, depending on the scale of the conflict, rather than let a single Eldar life slip away.
Okay, my mind immediately goes to the trolley problem. You know, the classic philosophy thought experiment.
Oh, sure, the runaway train.
Yeah, a runaway trolley is barreling down the tracks toward 5 tied-up people. You're standing next to a lever. If you pull it, the trolley diverts onto a side track where it only kills one person.
Right, a debate about active versus passive harm.
Exactly. But the Seer Council hasn't just solved the trolley problem, they have weaponized it on a galactic scale.
Well, I'd actually argue their methodology is far more extreme than the trolley problem.
Oh, so?
In that thought experiment, you are reacting to an immediate, unpredictable accident. The trolley is already in motion.
True.
The Seer Council, on the other hand, is building the trolley, laying the tracks directly into a heavily populated human city, and cutting the brakes themselves.
Oh my God.
And they're doing all of this based on a hallucination of a future that hasn't even happened yet.
That is a brilliant point. They aren't reacting to a crisis, they are manufacturing one.
Proactively.
Yeah, proactive atrocity. They are slaughtering 100,000 total strangers today because a Farseer had a vision that if they didn't, an Eldar might trip on the tracks 3 centuries from now.
From an analytical standpoint, observing this strictly through the mechanics of their survival, this cold pragmatism is the only mathematical formula that makes sense to them.
Because of their population size.
Exactly. They are an ancient race on the absolute brink of extinction. Their birth rate is incredibly low. To a population trapped on the edge of the Eye of Terror, losing a single citizen is a permanent, irrecoverable blow.
They just can't bounce back.
No, they can't. So an exchange rate where they trade 100,000 alien lives to save one of their own isn't a tragedy to them. It's a highly successful tactical operation.
Imagine the sheer terror of being a neighboring species in this universe. You are part of humanity, going about your daily life, dealing with your own local problems.
Paying your taxes, going to work.
Right. And suddenly your entire world is invaded, your cities are burned to the ground, and millions are dead.
You have no idea why.
And if you somehow survive and find out the truth, you learn it wasn't because of territory disputes or a fight over resources or even an ideological hatred. It was because a psychic alien light years away decided that a butterfly flapping its wings on your planet would eventually cause a minor inconvenience for their space station 100 years later.
The feeling of absolute powerlessness would be paralyzing. You cannot negotiate with an entity whose motives are entirely opaque to you.
You can't offer a peace treaty to someone who is attacking you based on a future you can't see.
Exactly. And a future you haven't even had the chance to participate in yet.
But this raises a huge logistical question for me. You can be the greatest precognitive grandmaster in the universe, sitting in your council chamber, pointing out a map of the future.
Okay.
But eventually, someone actually has to go pull the lever. Someone has to travel to Armageddon, assassinate the right leader, sabotage the right communication relay, and light the match that starts the war.
Yes, the execution phase.
And you can't fight a galaxy-spanning war of intervention with just a bunch of mystics in a room.
No, you need boots on the ground.
Yeah.
You need a military capable of executing these incredibly sudden surgical strikes.
Okay.
But this presents a massive demographic crisis for Craftworld Ulthwé. The rigorous, all-consuming process of becoming a Farseer, or warlock, is referred to in the sources as the path of the seer.
And they need a lot of them, right?
Yes. Because they need so many seers to decipher the skeins of fate, a disproportionately massive chunk of their population is tied up on this path.
Which means they don't have enough people left over to be regular soldiers.
Precisely. On a standard craft world, they have these specialized warrior castes, the aspect warriors, who dedicate their lives to mastering specific forms of combat.
But Ulthwé simply doesn't have the manpower to sustain those specialized classes, so who actually does the fighting?
To compensate for this critical lack of aspect warriors, Ulthwé has been forced to fundamentally restructure its society. They maintain a standing, permanent militia.
Okay, militia.
These troops are known as the Black Guardians, and it is crucial to understand the distinction here from other craft worlds.
How are they different?
When other craft worlds use citizen levies, they're essentially calling up civilians in a time of desperate need, like a hastily assembled neighborhood watch.
Just giving regular people weapons.
Right. But the Black Guardians of Ulthwé are not part-timers. They are a highly trained, incredibly lethal professional army.
Because they don't have the luxury of a weekend National Guard. When you live on the edge of the Eye of Terror, every available hand that isn't actively reading the future has to be holding a weapon.
Yes. They are a society entirely mobilized for war.
And their tactical doctrine is fascinating because it is entirely built around synergizing with the Farseers. The Black Guardians rarely fight prolonged, grinding wars of attrition, do they?
No, they don't have the numbers for that. They're supported directly by the seer councils, and their primary method of deployment relies on something called the webway.
I need to understand this webway because in the deep dive notes, it sounds like the ultimate tactical cheat code. How does it actually work?
Think of the webway as a sprawling, labyrinthine network of tunnels that exist between the physical dimension and the warp.
Like a subway system.
Sort of, but it was built millions of years ago by an ancient, long-gone race.
Oh, wow.
It allows a ship or an army to enter a portal in one part of the galaxy, travel through this insulated, extra-dimensional maze, and step out of a portal on the exact opposite side of the galaxy.
Totally bypassing normal space.
Exactly. Completely bypassing the conventional laws of physics and the dangers of normal space travel.
It is essentially a universal skeleton key to the galaxy's back door. They don't have to mount a massive, slow-moving fleet, deal with supply lines, and march across a continent while the enemy sees them coming on radar.
Exactly. They just appear, they step out of the shadows exactly where they need to be at the exact moment they need to be there.
That is the perfect military doctrine for a society led by precognition.
It really is a perfect pairing.
Right. The Seer Council looks at the tangled web of time and identifies the exact pressure point, say, a specific communications bunker on Armageddon at 0400 hours.
And then they strike.
Yeah. The Black Guardians use the webway to open a door right inside that bunker, strike with overwhelming, terrifying precision, and vanish back into the webway before the enemy even knows they are under attack.
It is a stunning example of adaptation born of absolute necessity.
Yeah.
They lack the specialized melee fighters and heavy shock troops of other craft worlds, so they militarize their entire general populace.
And it works.
It does. They are geographically trapped in a cosmic prison, so they utilize an ancient extra-dimensional highway system to project force anywhere in the galaxy instantaneously.
They have reorganized their entire civilization around their specific limitations.
Yes. But adapting to this kind of life leaves an incredibly heavy toll.
Oh, I can only imagine.
You don't just orchestrate planetary genocides, live next to a terror in reality, and draft your entire population into a permanent military without it breaking you down psychologically.
And you can see that toll just by looking at them. The fact that their army is called the Black Guardians is not a coincidence, is it?
Not at all. The visual identity of a society often acts as a mirror for its internal psychology. And when we look at the aesthetic choices of Craftworld Ulthwé, the records are meticulously detailed.
What do they look like?
Their forces, their architecture, their ships, they are predominantly dressed and painted in an ominous, deep black.
Very grim.
Yes. This is usually contrasted with very stark, severe accent colors. Bone white, golden yellow, and dark red.
So it is not a vibrant, cheerful color palette. It's aggressively somber.
Yeah.
And there is a very specific, explicit meaning behind that primary color, right?
Yes. To the Eldar, black is strictly the color of mourning.
The implication of that is staggering. The Black Guardians are marching into battle wearing their grief.
They are.
Their armor is not designed to look heroic or inspiring. It is a constant, physical, heavy reminder of the sorrow and the massive, unending sacrifice that their geographic position requires of them.
I can't even fathom the psychological weight of that. Imagine your standard military uniform is quite literally a funeral shroud.
That's incredibly bleak.
When a Black Guardian gears up for a mission, they're walking into a strike zone already actively mourning the lives they're about to brutally extinguish.
And grieving the comrades they know are inevitably going to die beside them. It completely, utterly rejects any human concept of glory, valor, or triumph in warfare.
It strips war down to its most miserable mechanical necessity, and this profound societal depression is crystallized in their iconography, too.
Oh, the world rune, right.
Right, they don't rally behind a symbol of a roaring beast or a rising sun. Their world rune, the primary emblem of their craft world, is known as the Eye of Isha.
And the Eye of Isha is incredibly bleak, based on the description. It is described as a stylized eye shedding a single lone tear.
Yeah, just one tear.
Isha is a goddess in their pantheon, right? Like a mother figure from whom the Eldar believe they descend.
Yes, she is.
And the tear represents her eternal sorrow for her children. So the very flag they fly, the symbol painted on the side of their tanks, is a weeping mother.
Think about what that says regarding their core identity. They do not define themselves by their incredible psychic prowess or their tactical brilliance in utilizing the webway.
Or their victories over alien empires.
Exactly. They define themselves exclusively by their sorrow. The weeping eye is the only appropriate emblem for a people who are forced to witness a terrible apocalyptic future and then commit unspeakable atrocities in the present just to survive it.
Which really acts as the ultimate synthesis of everything we've uncovered today. When you zoom out and look at all these puzzle pieces clicking together, the geographic damnation of being anchored to the eye of terror, the heavy burden of amplified foresight.
The incredibly cold utilitarian calculus that dooms billions of innocents.
Yeah, and a standing militia of mourners dressed in funeral shrouds, you arrive at the core theme of their existence. The historical analysis in our sources refers to it as the ultimate horror.
And it is vital to understand that the horror being referenced is not the demons or the warp or the physical threat of the Eye of Terror.
What is it then?
The ultimate horror is what Craftworld Ulthwé has had to become in order to fight those things. They are the pure, unadulterated embodiment of cold pragmatism stripped of all warmth.
They're a society that has voluntarily sacrificed its own soul, its own peace of mind, to an endless, grinding war of attrition.
Yes.
They sit in the dark and manipulate the fates of billions of sentient beings like pawns on a board. They pay for their constant vigilance with the blood of entirely innocent species like the humans on Armageddon.
And they accept the absolute damnation of their own morality, all just to stave off the extinction of their race for one more miserable day. The stakes simply could not be higher for them. They are the sentinels standing at the gates of hell, and they know that if they fall, the rest of the galaxy will be consumed.
But their story serves as an incredibly grim reminder that in a truly hostile universe, survival often requires you to become a monster yourself.
It fundamentally challenges you to think about what you would be willing to do, what lines you would be willing to cross in an absolute extreme survival situation.
There is a specific, incredibly chilling philosophy that drives them, and it's something I want to make sure we highlight before we wrap up.
Which one?
Their entire worldview operates on the premise that, quote, hope is not a virtue, but a dangerous luxury that must be sacrificed for the sake of survival.
That is a staggering philosophical stance. To view hope itself, the very thing that usually keeps human beings going in dark times, as an act of liability.
Because hope implies waiting for things to get better on their own.
Right. It implies trusting in a fundamentally benevolent universe. And Ulthwé knows with absolute certainty that the universe is malevolent, and trusting in hope will only get them killed.
It is a complete rejection of everything we are taught about resilience. We are always told to hold on to hope, to look for the silver lining.
Always.
But for the Assyriani of the Black and Bone, hope is just a distraction. It blurs your vision. It stops you from doing the bloody and necessary work of surviving today.
And the ultimate tragedy is that the bloody work is never, ever finished. They are trapped in a perpetual cycle of action and reaction.
Yeah. They are driven by terrifying visions of a doom they can only endlessly delay, but can never truly defeat.
Exactly.
Which leaves us with a lingering thought, something that wasn't explicitly spelled out in the historical records, but feels like the natural, deeply unsettling conclusion of everything we've unpacked today in this deep dive.
I'm curious where you're going with this.
I want you to really mull this over if you're listening. If you are constantly looking into the future and constantly committing atrocities to manipulate the timeline and avoid your own destruction, are you actually controlling your destiny?
Oh, wow. It is the ultimate paradox of precognition.
Right. Are you the master of fate, or are you just becoming a slave to the very visions you're trying to prevent?
That's a great question.
If every single vision of the future demands that you commit a terrible, bloody act today, who's really pulling the strings of you, or the malevolent future you are so desperately afraid of, are you steering the ship, or is the storm just throwing you exactly where it wants you?
In their desperate attempt to master fate, they may have simply become its most obedient, predictable servants.
It's an incredibly heavy thought to carry with you. We want to warmly thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the cosmic prison of Craftworld Ulthwé. Keep questioning the mechanics of survival, keep examining those extreme moral compasses, and we will catch you on the next one.